Hello my lovely bookish friends, and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be doing my mid-year freak-out tag, where I go through my favourites and new finds of the year so far. I have changed a couple of the questions so that they suit me a bit better, but before we get onto them, let's just go through a couple of book stats. So far I have read 54 books this year, and considering that last year I read 68 books total, this is an amazing achievement. I only really got back into reading 2 years ago, and I'm so happy that I've been able to keep it up. However, I will say that a lot of these books are manga, and I also read quite a few audiobooks, or listened to quite a few audiobooks, which is why I'm able to read so much. And also, just at the end of the day, the amount that you read isn't actually that important, it's about whether or not you've enjoyed the books that you've read, which leads me perfectly to the first question. What was the best book you've read so far in 2023? I was really torn as to what to put for this question, as I have read a number of really great books this year, such as Long as Lemon Trees Grow, the Lockwood & Co series, Babel, The Red Palace, and so on. However, the book that I will give the title of favourite will be The Night Circus. This book was on my TBR list for the year, and it was just so good. It was very magical and unexpectedly romantic. I didn't realise that the love story was going to be so lovely, and I was really rooting for the main characters. It was beautifully written with some wonderful prose, and I loved how all the storylines weaved together, and it just had an amazing atmosphere. Best sequel you've read so far in 2023? This was an easy one, as one of my favourite books of all time, Sorcery of Thorns, got its sequel novella earlier this year, Mysteries of Thorn Manor. This novella is so cute and wholesome, and it's just a wonderful look into the lives of our protagonists after the events of the main story, which the Sorcery of Thorns, which is the main book, is actually standalone, so this novella is just cute extras, and I just loved it. Best book I've reread so far in 2023. Now, this is a question that I added into the freak out tag, as I really like rereading books, and again I could have chosen quite a few to put as my favourite reread, such as Sorcery of Thorns, Howl's Moving Castle, Half a Soul. However, the winner for this question has to be Pride and Prejudice. I have read this book so many times, however this year was the first time that I annotated the novel whilst listening to the audiobook, and it was just truly a delightful experience. I've never annotated a novel before, but I really enjoyed it, and I want to do more for Jane Austen's other works. New release that I haven't read yet but want to. Now, there are quite a couple of books that could go into this category, such as Song of Silver, Flame of Night, The Lives of Puppets, Yellowface, The Hanging City. I'm quite bad at keeping up with new releases, as I prefer to read books after the initial hype for them has gone down, so there are a lot of new releases that I still have to get to. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This year I listened to the Nevermore books as audiobooks for the first time, and I absolutely fell in love with the series. It is a middle grade fantasy series, so I wasn't expecting to enjoy them as much as I did. However, I completely fell in love with the world and the characters, and I'm very invested in seeing what comes next with them, and the 4th book is out later this year, and that is definitely the book that I am most excited about. So for the biggest disappointment, well, if you've kept up with this channel, then you're probably going to guess what this one is. However, it was the Shadow and Bone books. They just really weren't my cup of tea. I love Six of Crows, and I wanted to check out this trilogy, but yeah, to be honest, it wasn't really a disappointment, because my hopes weren't that high to begin with, as I checked out the Netflix show, and I just really wasn't interested in like Elena's storyline or anything like that. But I just didn't realise that just how difficult it would be to keep up with this series. The second book almost got DNF'd many times. However, yeah, that had to be the biggest disappointment. I got through them. I'm glad I read them, that I read them, but yeah, they definitely were not a fave. So as for the biggest surprise for so far this year, I think it might have to be The Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I had heard good things about this book, but I didn't think I would like it that much, as I'm not really into spice or romance. But this book was so wholesome, and it was more focused on the found family aspect than the romance, and I just absolutely loved it. It was an absolute delight to read. And also a quick shout out to The Work of Art by Mimi Matthews, which is a book that I got free on Kindle and ended up absolutely loving. I read it in one sitting and ordered a physical copy. It was just a really sweet love story with a mystery element, and I just really enjoyed it. So as for a new author or a debut that's new to you, there are a couple that I could mention for this one, such as Mimi Matthews, Marissa Mayer, Jonathan Stroud, Heather Fawcett, for example, but I think I would have to say R.F. Kuang. Babel was one of the first books that I read this year and it wrecked me. The ending was just, man, my heart. And she is just an incredible writer, and I really want to check out her other works such as Yellowface and the Poppy Wars series. As for my favourite new character, this has to be the Lockwood & Co. crew. I just love these characters and this series. I think it's going to become one of my new comfort series as it's just so fun, and I just love all the characters. Lockwood, Lucy, George and Skull. Oh my goodness, Skull. He's just the funniest. He has some absolute killer one-liners. His lines just crack me up every time. So next up we have a book that made me cry, and this was a very easy one as I do not cry much at books. However, As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, man, I was sopping from chapter 6. Honestly, I have to say that this book, even though it's a young adult book, it really packs a punch. It's brutal and beautiful, and I highly recommend that everyone give it a read, but just make sure you're in the right mindset and prepare something happy to read or watch alongside it, because it is really a hard one. So what about a book that made me happy? Now there are lots of books that I could have put down for this one. However, I'm going to go with the manga series A Saviour's Book Cafe in Another World. It is an incredibly cute and wholesome manga series, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading it. I was just smiling the whole time, and I just want a book cafe. It's a dream of mine now. So the most beautiful book you've brought this year or received. There were a couple of ones that I could have gone for this. For example, my publishers, Emerald Publishing, recently released this classics editions, which are gorgeous. And though I also got the paperback edition of A Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, and which is also a beautiful cover. However, I think I'll have to say my Fairy Loot editions of Sorcery of Thorns, Enchantment of Ravens and Vespertine. They just look so pretty together, and I just adore all the books and just the character artworks at the end. It has my whole heart. They're just so gorgeous. I love these books. What book or books do I still need to read by the end of this year? So remember that TBR list I made at the start of the year and how there was only 12 books on it, so I told myself I could manage, just read one book a month. Yeah, so I've only read 2 and I'm currently reading 1. Yeah, so I really need to jump on that list and read some more books off it. That's going to be a priority, really. And that was it for this mid-year freak out tag. Thank you for those of you who have watched it to this point, and do let me know in the comments below what books you have enjoyed so far this year. And until next time, my lovely bookish friends,